Today we are going to talk about what do we do if we have confirmed and booked our wedding at a venue that may have some logistical challenges, and how do we approach that process? What can we expect from that? So we're super excited to dive in.
If you crave luxury but need guidance, then stay tuned for magic. Welcome to Wedding Tips and Tales with T.S. Wed, the podcast where we unveil the secrets to crafting the perfect luxury wedding. Join us for expert advice and insider tips that will make your special day unforgettable. Let's make your wedding dreams come true together.
Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Taryn.
And I'm Dani.
Welcome to Wedding Tips and Tales, where Dani and I, who have been in luxury destination weddings for nearly 15 years now, chat with you guys, new brides, new grooms, about a few interesting topics that might help you as you begin your wedding planning journey. Thank you so much for joining us.
First off, what are we drinking?
We are drinking a new wine for us because we're in a new location together. We are currently in Bend, Oregon, where I've never been. You've never been to Bend.
Never to Bend.
And so we are drinking, as one should, only Oregon wines while we're here.
Yeah.
And this is called, I'm going to butcher the name. It's a red Oregon-based wine that we think is called Pinot Meunier. Meunier.
We use a generous term.
What do you think it's called?
I think it's a Oregon red.
She doesn't even want to rhyme.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, it's good.
That is good.
You already had it.
Yeah, no.
That's my first one, and she goes, "Stop drinking the red." I'm like, "I haven't had the red yet."
Stop yelling at the people.
The people love it when I yell.
Mm.
So, Dani, when we say like logistical challenges with a venue, what are some examples of logistical challenges with a venue?
Great. So logistical challenges are going to be things that aren't the fun, some might say sexy, parts of wedding planning, like florals and linen and what you're wearing, all of that's the fun stuff. The logistical challenges are power, lighting, access to bathroom,
Water access.
things that are like the back of house. Like if you don't have water access, then you can't have a remote kitchen, and then you can't have XYZ food. Like that's the part, like that's not fun to think about.
No.
And that's not when you look at a venue, you're not maybe automatically going like, okay, and where's the closest power line? And right, like these are the things that aren't the fun parts.
Right.
But that can really prove to be a challenge with your venue, especially if you've already booked the venue without thinking of these things ahead of time. You're stuck and locked into a venue. It is what it is. So how do you compensate for that? Right?
Yeah, the first thing you do is you get yourself a very competent planner. And I understand that's a shameless plug because we might not be the right fit for you. But if you have a planner, your planner is the person that is thinking about this and is asking those questions in advance.
Right.
And so if you're working with a planner, like even if you've already booked the venue, so for instance, I just had an inquiry, a very sweet, lovely couple who have already booked their venue, and it's in a very remote location that has difficult access points. We've done multiple weddings there. And we were chatting through like logistics of what it could look like if we planned our wedding. And I said, okay, here's the thing. Like, we know there are like a lot of vendors that don't go there because it's 2.5, 3 hours away from the main city or whatever. And blah, blah. She goes, what? There are vendors that don't go there? I went, yeah, babe. Like,
It's a curvy road.
it's a
long
super
drive.
curvy road. It's hard, especially if you're like a rental company with like a box truck.
Right.
Like it's hard to get there. And if you have to be there at 8 a.m. for setup, that means you have to leave your home, your studio
Yeah.
at 5 a.m. to get there. And then you have to do a same night strike,
Right.
which means that you have to break down at 10 p.m., which
So,
will
like,
take
the
an
team
hour
is
or
gonna
two.
stay there
So
the entire-
everyone has to stay the night. And so like, but that sweet bride had not thought one thing about that. She had not thought at all, like, oh my goodness,
Right.
like that means that I then am going to have to pay for this entire team to stay over in the one tiny motel that's there next to the bougie hotel that we bought out. Like,
But
and so if you hire a planner who's experienced, not exclusively with your venue, because I think that if you have an experienced planner,
an experienced planner knows what to look for at any venue and has
Exactly.
solutions to these problems.
Exactly.
So, in the solution solving category, some of the problems are things like access to the event space. So not just the getting to the hotel or getting to the venue, which is maybe 2 or 3 hours from the closest city, and that's just difficult. A lot of that can be solved, quite frankly and bluntly, with money. You're just going to be paying more in travel fees and more in accommodation fees. But what if they get to the venue and the lawn space is miles away from the
Correct.
front drive?
And we just did this. We just hosted a luxury wedding vendor retreat on Maui at one of our favorite properties, the Wailea Beach Resort. And the fact of the matter is that access to their premier oceanfront lawn is challenging. It's very challenging. And yet we know all the vendors on Maui, gratefully. We know all of our partners and we're able to work with them in advance. But like several of them were saying, okay, but this could be really hard. Like that, what do we do about this? Do we need to charge extra for load in and load out? Do we need to have golf carts because our vehicles can't come down? But we already knew about all that. We already planned for all of that.
So that can be put into the budget ahead of time.
Exactly.
Right. So golf carts is going to be the simplest and quickest solution to 95% of the problems when it comes to access to the event space is a rental of golf carts, and whether that's for the vendors, for your planner, or for your guests.
Right.
We did a wedding in New Hampshire where it was a private property. It was actually the family of the bride's property, and yet where all of the guests were parking was a hefty way away
And
on
it was,
rocky hills.
yeah, it was not easy walking,
Right.
especially we think about it specifically for women in heels or women in like floor length dresses. That's very challenging.
And you spend the whole day getting ready, and then you're like hiking.
Yeah.
Right.
You're hoofing it. And God forbid there's any kind of weather while
Right.
you're trying to get from A to B.
Yeah.
That's hard.
So having transportation in the form of golf carts, in the form of, it depends on your venue, of course. Like if a horse-drawn carriage makes sense for your venue, if we're getting married in Wyoming or something, right? Like there's ways to play with that, but these are things that you have to keep in mind if you're having a location that's difficult to get to.
Right. So what are some things that as a couple, as a newly engaged couple, if you've already booked your venue and you understand there are some logistical challenges to the venue, what are some things that we need to pay attention to?
My top two are always going to be power and lighting.
Really? It's not my top two.
Oh, what are your top two?
I think that power is in my top two.
Okay.
But my number one is staffing.
Oh yeah, sure. I think okay, so power is obvious.
You need power. Power, but that's easily solved. So these are not unsolvable problems.
Correct.
Like there are generators, there are quiet generators, there are huge, loud generators that can be hauled way far away from the venue and then have all the courts in the world. So
But that is a logistical step that like if you're gonna do a generator, can you get a quiet generator that is powerful enough for your needs, which can be difficult. You might need more than one, which is just expensive. Or
and ugly. It's
and
also
ugly, right.
ugly. So like then you have to pay attention, like that New Hampshire wedding that you were just talking about. They didn't have power down on the lawn space where we hosted their atrium. And so they had to have a huge generator for everything, for the catering tent, for the bathrooms, for the atrium itself, like all the things. And yet it was horribly unpleasant to look at and to behold.
Right.
And so we had to, again, like having a good planner helps you with this, but like we rented a ton of topiary walls that we just surrounded the whole thing with topiary walls,
Right.
and therefore it blocked the noise and it blocked the unfortunate vision of it.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing for me, so my other one was lighting. Lighting for me is difficult just because it's such like it depends on the space, it depends on the property. And this is not to say lighting, like this is separate from power. If you are wanting your lighting to come from overhead, which is 90% of event lighting is going
Yeah.
to be overhead.
Usable event
Right,
lighting.
right.
Yeah.
Like you if you don't have rigging points, if the lawn space, let's say the lawn space is expansive and there's no trees in the lawn space, like amazing for a tent. But if you don't want a tent, you don't have any place you can rig strings of light from, or just straight up tension line to have chandeliers hanging from. And so the solution to that is then sometimes not pretty. It's like metal poles that you have to put on the outside, which are maybe not the right look and feel for whatever that design and vibe is, especially if the reason why you like that venue is the open, expansive naturalness of it. And then you're throwing in these like tall, ugly black poles.
Right.
It's it's a trick design wise.
That's the thing, is it's a trick design wise, and then it ends up being an investment budget wise because you have to invest in poles or rigging.
And more florals to cover it. And what does it look like? It
Right.
just takes a few steps. Again, a solvable solution. We recently did an event that was poolside that we could not do overhead rigging with. And it was just tons of ground up lighting.
Right.
This can look like up lighting. We had little
Floating.
rechargeable lights on the tables. We
Yep.
had floating lights in the pool. Like there are ways to play with it, but you just have to be really aware that you'll have some limitations if you can't be stringing overhead.
And then the third thing that matters, I think, is staffing. So if
Right.
you have a property that doesn't necessarily, that's gorgeous and amazing, but doesn't necessarily have the staffing required to produce the caliber of event that you're bringing to the property, that's not insurmountable.
Correct.
But it should be acknowledged
Mhm.
because it is fixable. If we want to call it a problem, it's absolutely fixable, but you have to be so intentional about it.
If you want your guests to have a high level of service
Right.
experience, and whether it's a hotel that doesn't offer that, they'll want a beautiful property, or it's just a private estate space, or it's any space that just, I mean, it can be a community center that's gorgeous, but they just don't host events like that.
Correct. You just need to be prepared. You have to prepare yourself. And so that means that you have to prepare your budget because additional people mean additional investment, obviously. And we want to be intentional about where we're putting those people. So, for example, do you need to be shuttled from A to B to get from the lobby to your ceremony? And they only have one bell person. Great, I'm sure that bell person is fantastic, except for that you have 100 guests, which means that you need more staff to shuttle golf carts. Do you need to rent more golf carts? Great. Do you need to pay for more staff to come in to facilitate said golf carts so that you don't have a 45-minute wait up
Right.
to get to the
And
ceremony? Like,
golf carts sit at best, what, 6 people?
yeah,
Maybe there's an eight-seater somewhere, but like if you have 100 people and it's only moving 6 people at a time, that like one trip and back and one trip and
it will
back.
take forever. And
Right.
so you need that. It's just necessary.
And similar to that, there's also right like some middle ground where maybe you don't need 10 golf carts, maybe you get away with 5, but then you make sure there is a drink location at both pickup and drop off so
Because
the
it's
guests
going to
that
be
are
a little bit of
waiting.
time. It's going to be 30, 40 minutes until every single person has arrived or departed, depending on which side of the fence that you're on there.
Yeah.
And so then you need a person there. You need a person to manage your guests, and so
Music playing, shade provided. Like again, these are the logistical things that none of these are insurmountable. It's just things that you want someone to have an eye on.
and if you don't, they are in fact things that could make or break the event.
Yeah.
So they're not insurmountable challenges, but they are things that could have a tremendously negative impact on your event if grandma had to wait an hour to get into the golf cart to get to your space for the ceremony. That's awful. Like you don't want that.
And then the bathroom was really far away. And the lighting was really awful, and she couldn't see where she was going. And oh, there was no power, and the generator was so loud that we
we
couldn't hear a
couldn't hear
single speak.
any speeches.
Right.
Like that's something that you don't want, which is why you do invest. You either invest in a very, very high-end venue that has all of those T's crossed and I's dotted, or you invest or you invest in the solutions to resolving said logistical issues,
Mhm.
oftentimes which can be pointed out by a capable planner.
And that can look like too, like a very simple example of that would be, let's say the venue that you're at has a most places will have like a standard of per X amount of guests, we have X amount of either bartenders or servers or what have you. And if you recognize, especially if you're able to do a site visit or if you're able to do tasting, and you recognize the level of service wasn't quite where you wanted it to be, maybe it just wasn't fast enough for you, maybe whatever it was, great, let's double that staffing numbers.
Exactly, which again, that's a little bit of an investment because people cost money, time costs money, obviously, but it's not worth the
The line at the bar. Like it's not worth having a line at
Exactly.
the
I
bar.
was going to say something much more dramatic. I was going to say it's not worth the failure of your event. My gosh, it's very dramatic. But like ultimately, like if you're being a good host and you have to wait 40 minutes to get your drink order in, like that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Like, what are we doing?
So maybe we have 2 bars. Maybe we have 3 bars. Maybe we have
Right.
2 bartenders per bar. Maybe we hire bar backs. And so that at least that like the back of house service is going faster, right? These are all things that you can play with, that your planning team can play with. Your planner can bring in additional people onto their team. So maybe the staffing at said venue, say you're at a hotel. Oh, well, we only have X, Y, or Z. Wonderful. Let us like it's what I'm looking for.
Subcontract.
Yes, subcontract, but when you're like you help them out a bit. Like let us
Augment.
augment that service, right? And so there's things that like maybe outside help can't pour the wine, but we can certainly help like we can have teammates that help clean dishes
Yeah,
or help reload things or
exactly.
help get more limes. They need more lime, right? So there's like ways you can play with that.
Absolutely. So those are just things like let's pay attention because the fact of the matter is that if you book your wedding at a Chateau and Low property, you're going to get the best possible service, bar none.
Right.
Like it's going to be incredible no matter what. But if you're not necessarily investing that big of a chunk of your budget into the most elite venue that you could possibly have,
Right.
you can still find a beautiful, unbeatable venue that does have logistical challenges and it's going to be a little bit more generous on your budget. You should then take that generosity that
Space
yields
that's
that
left, yeah.
space and pour it back into the service so that you are still hosting beautifully.
And there's something really magical about using an untapped location.
There is.
It's one of our favorite things to do. Even a location that's been used a lot to like orient everything a little bit different so that like you're just doing it different than it's ever been done before. And so if you find a venue that like no one's ever done a wedding here before, this is amazing, let's do it. It's automatically going to come with logistical challenges because it's never been done there before, right? It's going to be very rare that you find a perfect, never used before wedding venue that has power and has lighting and has staffing, right? So like none of this is a bad thing. It's just don't go, oh my gosh, it was so cheap and therefore our budget can be a lot less. That's not necessarily the case. You want to still be a really good host. You want to still think of these logistical non-fun things that really do matter for the big day.
They matter tremendously. All right, that was a kind of nitty-gritty one,
Yeah.
but one that hopefully will really impact you in a positive way and provide you with a lot of really good material to set you up for success in your future wedding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for joining us. We'll do a fun one. We'll do a sexy one, like Dani said, next time.
Lord.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave your questions below for future podcast topics. Subscribe, like, and let us know your favorite tip from this video. Until next time, let's keep making wedding dreams come true together. Bye for now.